Hello everyone and welcome to the Fat Feminist Witch podcast, the show where I usually do a little ranting, raving, and wand waving, but today I've just got a book review for you instead. This is the first standalone book review of Shadows episode of 2017, and as I said in my last show, this year I'll be releasing full episodes about every 6 weeks or so, but in between I'll be doing these shorter standalone episodes whenever I have something magical to share. So stuff like book reviews or sketchy herbs and magic rocks, that stuff will be coming out on a completely irregular and spontaneous basis, so you'll just have to watch for it. I kind of apologize for that, but I also can't really help it. So today I'm reviewing Magical Destinations of the Northeast, Sacred Sites, Occult Oddities, and Magical Monuments by the Wandering Witch Natalie Zaman, and I really hope I'm pronouncing her last name properly. So a fun fact about me, I actually went to school for tourism and travel. I learned how to write travel guides, and I also learned how to collect them with my student loan. Thank you, student loan. So I love travel guides. Despite the fact that I love travel guides, I've never read one cover to cover like I did with this book, which is why this book gets a 5 crystal ball rating out of 5. By the time Natalie, the author, had messaged me to ask if I'd be willing to review her book, I had already looked up her book on a bunch of websites, put it on my Goodreads want to read list, and kind of added it in an I'm gonna buy soon list on Amazon. So I was extra excited. Thank you so much, Natalie, for emailing for the book. And she is going to be on the show. I'll be doing an interview with her very soon, so stay tuned if you like what you hear about this book, which I promise you will. As it says right on the back of the book here, every state in America has sacred sites, places that change you, heal you, and make you feel alive. Magical Destinations of the Northeast details more than 300 spiritual destinations perfect for meditation, magic, and just plain fun. This hands-on guidebook also includes spells and rituals and provides tips for the magical uses of official state flowers, plants, gems, minerals, and trees. And that's exactly what you find in this book. It's exactly what you find in the book. It's absolutely amazing, the stuff that I learned about states that are so very close to me. So the states talked about in the book are Maine, Vermont, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, District of Columbia, which is Washington, D.C., Maryland, Delaware, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and New York. I have been to a few of these states. Well, I've been through a lot more of them, but I've been to about 3 of these states. And I really thought that I knew what I could expect from those chapters, but I had no idea. Honestly, the stuff that's in this book has got to be some of the best kept secrets in the world. I'm so excited that she wrote this book. One of my favorite things about the book, I guess, and what makes it so different from a regular travel guide, like I said, you can read it cover to cover. The writing of the book is absolutely fantastic, and it's got these beautiful magical descriptions, and they transport you to these locations. You know, I can practically see Washington, D.C. being laid out like a pentagram, and I can hear the Liberty Bell, and I can feel Aleister Crowley's creepy burial soil shift beneath my feet. I can't believe I was so happy to feel like I was in Delaware or New Jersey. I've been to New Jersey. I did not see any of this great stuff in New Jersey. One of my favorite things about the book, I think, and it's right at the beginning, and like I said, I thought I knew what I could expect from this book, and she instantly knocked me down off my high horse there and said right out that shops would be included in the book in an extremely limited capacity. And I realized that most of the witchy locations I have thought up in my head are because there are shops there that I know I could visit. I obviously have a little block there, so I was really happy that I was able to learn a bunch of new stuff from this book, and it wasn't just a list of shops that I could shop at. It's everything from occult sites, historical areas, natural places where there's kind of an extra vibe, and she even talks about some magic in places or in items that a lot of people would see as mundane and non-magical. So one of my favorite examples of that is right near the beginning of the book. In Washington, D.C., there's this section titled Washington's Gods and Goddesses. And it talks about different deities depicted all over the city. So you can find Roman goddess of wisdom and justice Minerva at the Supreme Court building. Minerva is usually compared to Athena in the Greek pantheon, if that makes sense. And the Supreme Court building is actually modeled after the Parthenon. So you get this very good image there of Minerva. You have a painting of Zeus in the form of George Washington, or maybe George Washington in the form of Zeus at the Smithsonian. And at the Capitol building, you have Mars and Ceres guarding the entrance in, as well as a lot of other deities kind of all around the Capitol building. So if you worship deities, or you're really interested in deities, there's a ton of places in Washington, D.C. where you can find them of all different backgrounds. If you really like to work with natural elements, each chapter has this little section called Enchanting Emblems, and this talks about the state rock, mineral, tree, flower, plant, that kind of thing, where you can find them in the state, and kind of the history about how they became the symbols of the state, and then their magical correspondences. This was especially great because I live in Ontario, which I guess in American terms is kind of the Midwest. I live right near Detroit, Michigan. So a lot of these Eastern plants and rocks and stuff are things that I can find in my area. So I actually learned a little bit about some of the natural elements of my own area reading this book. And I also found out that Pennsylvania does not have a state rock. It has a state fossil, the trilobite. I thought that was really cool. Rhode Island's state rock is called bowenite, and it looks so alien. It looks so alien. Bowenite is really similar to some of the unknowable stone or whatever in H.P. Lovecraft, right? So it's very creepy and alien looking. I love it. It's beautiful. And when you Google bowenite, you find out that it's a really popular stone in Maori legend and artistry. So you can find bowenite carved into all these beautiful shapes from the exact other side of the planet. Thought that was really neat. I also learned that Maryland is full of white oaks, big white oaks, including ones that are over 300 years old, which I think is really amazing, and that the white oak helps protect against wicked spells and negativity. So I'm wondering if maybe Maryland is like the coolest place to live. I wouldn't be shocked because according to this book, that's where Edgar Allan Poe is buried. If you are interested in some of the more paranormal magical stuff, like, monsters and cryptozoology, ghosts and legends about haunted places, haunted locations, established sacred sites that are kind of creepy and been there for a while, or graves of note, you can find all of this stuff in the book. So if you've ever wanted to pay tribute to Aleister Crowley, Edgar Allan Poe, H.P. Lovecraft, like I said, or Ed Warren, the ghost hunter with his wife Lorraine there, this book can find you all of their graves and tell you creative and magical ways to pay tribute if you want, and tell you some interesting facts about their headstones and stuff like that. If you go onto the blog, thefatfeministwitch.com, and read through my review, I posted a picture of Edgar Allan Poe's old marker for his original burial place, which has actually been changed. So there's 2 places you can visit Edgar Allan Poe in Maryland. Probably my favorite feature of every single chapter was this little section called Sit Down for a Spell. And it's a local witch or magical person that lives in that state sharing a prayer or spell or ritual that specifically incorporates some of their local magic. So at the end of the Massachusetts chapter, you have Salem witch Lori Cabot and her daughter Penny, and they both give a little spell, and they talk about Salem magic, which I thought was fun and something a little bit familiar with. But in the Pennsylvania chapter, there's this awesome grounding spell by Goldie Brown, who I had never heard of and will now look up obsessively, called the Pennsylvania grounding spell, that incorporates all of the elements. And that is specifically how I love to ground. So it's got to be my new favorite grounding ritual of all time. I had to stop reading the book and go collect all the things you need and try it out because I just thought it was great and it made me feel so good. So definitely when you grab this book, go to Pennsylvania section and check it out. I really like it. If you're looking for a book with a lot of color photographs and pull-out maps that you can carry around on your vacation that'll lead you to some of these places, this is maybe not the only book to go with. I find that this book is a little bit less about physically bringing you to this spot, but getting you to feel something when you finally arrive. So what you get instead of those maps or the color photos that you find in a lot of other travel guides is these beautifully written descriptions, not just 2 or 3 sentences, but beautiful descriptions of these places with just a little hint of spookiness, and there's a little bit of humor in there too. And you get tons of spells and magic that you can do in all of these places while respecting the natural energy of the area and the natural cultures of the area. She talks about the indigenous cultures that are found in all of these different states. There's a list at the beginning of the book of their names and where online you can find out more information about them. In each chapter, she makes mention of things like colonization and the effect that it had on this area, but how you can visit those areas and pay respects to kind of the other side of that situation. She talks about First Contact Beach and everything like that. So it is an amazing book to plan out a really cool, witchy northeast trip that you can feel really good about having. But if you're looking for maps and stuff, you're going to need a secondary travel guide. I still think you should grab this one. But if you are going absolutely no place and you just need a cool book to read in your living room, honestly, this is the one. I learned so much interesting stuff about all these cultures that I knew nothing about, and monsters that live like an hour's flight from me. So I learned a lot about stuff like Pennsylvania Dutch culture and the mysticism that comes in with that, and folk magic, which I didn't know existed. I didn't know that, and it's right there. I thought that was really cool. So 5 crystal balls out of 5. This book definitely earned it. And if this book sounds interesting to you and you think, yeah, I could definitely read that, very soon, the author Natalie Zaman will be on the show. I will be announcing the specifics of that shortly. So check back and definitely pick up a copy of Magical Destinations of the Northeast. If you want to help out the podcast and blog while you shop on Amazon, there is a link on my blog, thefatfeministwitch.com, to buy it through my Amazon A store. Again, you're buying it directly from Amazon, but it does help out the podcast and the blog. So thank you for tuning into the Fat Feminist Witch podcast. You can find me at thefatfeministwitch.com, or you can look up the Fat Feminist Witch on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or Pinterest. I do a lot of Pinterest pinning and a lot of Instagramming. So check me out there. And if you feel like you have a book that you want me to review on the blog, or if you've written a book that you want me to review on the blog or the podcast, you can always send me an email at fatfeministwitch@gmail.com. Have a great weekend and stay magical.